What if the light you've been seeking all your life is not what you imagined? What if the very nature of illumination has been misunderstood, deliberately obscured by forces that fear your awakening? We've been conditioned to believe that spiritual light is a singular phenomenon, a simple binary of darkness versus illumination. But what if I told you that light itself has dimensions, frequencies, and levels of consciousness that the architects of our reality have deliberately hidden from your awareness? The most profound deception isn't keeping you in darkness. It's keeping you satisfied with a lesser light while convincing you that you've reached the summit of illumination. The Archontes, those ancient cosmic jailers of consciousness, don't fear your darkness. They fear the moment when you discover that what you've been calling enlightenment is merely the first step on a staircase of 7 ascending realities. This knowledge was not meant for you to discover. The systems of control that govern our world, both seen and unseen, have worked tirelessly to ensure that humanity remains content with the lower frequencies of light, never suspecting the existence of higher dimensions of awareness. Jesus didn't come to start a religion. He came to reveal a cosmology of light that would shatter the prison of perception that has enslaved humanity for millennia. What follows is not just information, it's an activation. By the end of this journey, you won't merely understand the 7 levels of light. You'll begin to perceive reality through them. The veil doesn't lift all at once, it dissolves gradually as your consciousness expands to embrace frequencies of light that have always been there, waiting for you to evolve enough to perceive them. Hidden within the most esoteric teachings of Jesus, carefully excised from orthodox doctrine and deliberately obscured by ecclesiastical authorities, lies a revolutionary framework of spiritual illumination. The Nag Hammadi Library, discovered in 1945, revealed texts that had been buried for nearly 2 millennia, including fragments of the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Secret Book of John. These ancient Gnostic manuscripts contain cryptic references to what scholars now recognize as Jesus' teaching on the 7-fold nature of divine light. This was not metaphor or allegory. Jesus was describing the actual structure of consciousness itself, a cosmology of light that ascends through 7 distinct frequencies, each representing a level of awareness and spiritual perception. The Pistis Sophia, a Gnostic text attributed to Jesus' teachings after his resurrection, speaks explicitly of these treasuries of light and the transformative journey through them. Why was this teaching suppressed? Because it revealed something dangerous. That divinity wasn't the monopoly of distant gods or institutional authorities. The 7 levels of light were a map showing humanity how to reclaim its Tad, sovereign consciousness, how to ascend beyond the control systems of the Archontes and their earthly representatives. This wasn't just spiritual theory, it was a practical technology of liberation that threatened every power structure built on human ignorance. The earliest Christian Gnostics understood this. Before they were branded heretics and systematically eliminated, they preserved these teachings in coded language, knowing that one day, when consciousness was ready to evolve beyond its prison, these seeds of truth would germinate once again. That time is now. The ancient knowledge is reawakening, not as dusty theology, but as living experience, a direct perception of reality that transcends the limitations of our programmed awareness. If these words resonate within you, if you feel a stirring of recognition beyond intellectual curiosity, then you are one of those whose consciousness is ready to perceive these higher frequencies of light. This isn't coincidence. Your presence here is part of a greater awakening, a cosmic remembrance that's unfolding across humanity. Join us on this journey of illumination. Subscribe to this sanctuary of remembrance where ancient wisdom meets evolving consciousness. By becoming part of this community, you're not just following content, you're participating in a field of awakening that grows stronger with each mind that joins it. The subscription button isn't just a digital function, it's a declaration of intent, a small but significant act of consciousness that says, I choose to remember, I choose to see beyond the veil. Each person who joins this journey strengthens the collective field of awareness that makes these higher truths more accessible to all. When you subscribe, set your intention. Take a breath and recognize that you're not just consuming information, you're committing to a path of expanded perception. These aren't just videos, They're transmission points for frequencies of consciousness that have been hidden from humanity for too long. To understand the 7 levels of light, we must first understand the cosmology in which they exist. In Gnostic tradition, our universe is not the creation of the ultimate divine source, but rather the product of a lesser deity called the demiurge, a being who falsely believes itself to be the supreme God. The demiurge, born from the fall of Sophia, divine wisdom, created the physical cosmos as a flawed reflection of the true spiritual realms. To maintain control over this creation, the demiurge generated the Archontes, cosmic administrators whose primary function is to keep human consciousness trapped within the limitations of material existence. These Archontes are not merely mythological figures, but representations of the forces that constrain human awareness, both externally through systems of control and internally through patterns of thought and perception that limit our understanding of reality. The true divine spark, what Jesus called the kingdom of heaven within, remains buried in humanity, forgotten but not extinguished. This divine fragment is our connection to the pleroma, the fullness of divine reality that exists beyond the flawed creation of the demiurge. The 7 levels of light represent the graduated stages of remembrance and ascension through which human consciousness can reconnect with its true nature and origin. In the Apocryphon of John, Jesus describes how souls descend through these levels, acquiring different aspects of personality and limitation at each stage. But he also reveals that this process can be reversed, that through gnosis, direct experiential knowledge, humans can ascend back through these levels, shedding the constraints imposed by archonic influence. The Archontes maintain their control primarily through ignorance, not just the absence of information, but the active misdirection of consciousness. They don't merely hide the truth, they create compelling pseudo-truths that satisfy the human hunger for meaning while keeping us disconnected from our divine nature. The most effective prison is one where the inmates don't realize they're imprisoned, where the walls are made not of stone but of beliefs that limit what's possible. Jesus came as a revealer, not to create another religion, but to demonstrate the path through these 7 levels of light. His teachings, when stripped of later doctrinal overlays, show a clear map for transcending archonic control and reclaiming our sovereign connection to the divine source. His life was not about worship, but demonstration, showing humanity what becomes possible when we fully embody each ascending level of light. The mythic framework isn't just ancient storytelling, it's a precise map of consciousness itself, as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. The Archontes and their systems of control have evolved in appearance but not in essence. The prison of perception remains, though its walls have become more sophisticated and less visible. What if these mythic figures aren't external entities, but internal forces within human consciousness? What if the demiurge is our own ego, that aspect of self that believes it is the center and creator of reality, separate from the true source? What if the Archontes are the thought patterns, beliefs, and perceptual filters that maintain this illusion of separation? From this perspective, the 7 levels of light aren't distant heavenly realms, but graduated states of awareness, each representing a more expanded and authentic experience of reality. Each level dissolves another layer of illusion, another boundary of the separate self, until we arrive at the direct experience of our true nature, what Jesus called becoming children of light. The first level of light, what most religions identify as basic spiritual awakening, is merely the recognition that there's more to reality than material existence. This is the light that illuminates the fact of the prison, but doesn't yet show the way out. Many spiritual seekers become trapped here, mistaking this initial illumination for full enlightenment. The Archontes are perfectly comfortable with humans reaching this level, as it often leads to spiritual materialism, the accumulation of spiritual experiences as possessions of the ego. The second level reveals the nature of the prison itself, how systems of belief, both religious and secular, constrain human potential. At this level, we begin to see how our perception has been programmed, how our sense of identity has been constructed to serve purposes that aren't our own. This is where critical thinking meets spiritual awareness, where we begin to question not just what we know, but how we know. The third level activates the heart's intelligence, moving beyond intellectual understanding to embodied wisdom. Here we begin to perceive through love rather than fear, connection rather than separation. The Archontes particularly fear this level because it makes their primary tool, fear, less effective in controlling human behavior. The fourth level awakens intuitive knowing, direct perception unmediated by thought. We begin to access information and understanding that doesn't come through our conditioned mental processes. This is where synchronicity becomes a normal part of experience, where we perceive the underlying patterns connecting seemingly separate events. The fifth level transcends time, allowing consciousness to perceive beyond the linear progression that constrains ordinary awareness. Past, present, and future are recognized as constructs rather than absolute realities. This is where prophecy and precognition become possible, not as supernatural abilities, but as natural functions of consciousness freed from temporal constraints. The sixth level dissolves the boundary between self and other, revealing the unified field of consciousness that underlies individual experience. This is what Jesus meant by I and the Father are one, not a claim of exclusive divinity, but a recognition of the universal truth of our shared essence with the divine source. The seventh level, the one the Archontes most fear humanity discovering, is the complete remembrance of our nature as creators rather than creatures. At this level, consciousness recognizes itself as the primary reality from which all manifestation emerges. This isn't just enlightenment, it's empowerment, the reclamation of our divine birthright as co-creators of reality itself. If these words awaken something within you, a resonance beyond intellectual agreement, then light is recognizing light. The knowing that stirs in you isn't new information, it's remembrance of what your soul has always known. Express this recognition. Let the light within you acknowledge the light being revealed here. The simple act of pressing the like button becomes a declaration, not to an algorithm, but to the field of consciousness itself. It says, I remember, I recognize, I am awakening. This isn't about digital validation, but energetic confirmation. Each acknowledgement strengthens the field of remembrance, making these higher frequencies of light more accessible to others who are ready to perceive them. In Gnostic terms, this is how the scattered light of Sophia begins to reunite, through recognition, through the yes of awakening consciousness. Take a moment before responding. Feel what has been activated within you. The intellectual mind may analyze, but let the heart and deeper knowing guide your response. This is how we begin to perceive through the higher levels of light, by allowing consciousness to operate beyond its conditioned patterns. How does this understanding of the 7 levels of light translate into your daily experience? Look at your life through this lens. Where do you experience limitation, fear, or separation? These are the shadows cast by archonic influence, not because these forces are targeting you personally, but because the entire structure of our consensus reality is designed to keep consciousness functioning at the lower levels of light. Consider how you've been conditioned to seek illumination. Most spiritual traditions, even those with genuine mystical origins, have been shaped to direct your seeking outward or toward limited expressions of inner light. You're encouraged to worship the lamp rather than become the light itself. This isn't accidental, it's the primary mechanism through which spiritual hunger is redirected away from true empowerment. How many times have you reached what felt like a profound spiritual breakthrough, only to find yourself back in the same patterns months or years later? This oscillation isn't failure. It's the natural result of touching higher frequencies of light without the foundation to sustain that awareness. True ascension through the levels isn't about peak experiences, but stable expansion of perception. The anxiety you feel in moments of uncertainty, the fear that arises when your identity is threatened, the exhaustion that comes from maintaining the illusion of separation, these are all symptoms of consciousness straining against artificial constraints. You weren't designed to perceive reality through such limited frequencies of light. The discomfort is not evidence of your brokenness, but of your readiness to expand. Look at your relationships. Where do you project your unacknowledged shadow? Where do you seek from others the light you haven't recognized within yourself? The people in your life are mirrors, reflecting aspects of your consciousness that remain unintegrated. As you ascend through the levels of light, these projections dissolve, and relationships become expressions of unity rather than attempts to complete what feels incomplete. Your daily choices, what you consume, how you spend your attention, what you value, all reflect the level of light through which you're currently perceiving reality. There's no judgment in this. It's simply information about where your consciousness is focused. As you become aware of these patterns, you gain the ability to choose differently, to align your life with higher frequencies of light. What would change if you began to perceive your challenges through the fourth level of light, seeing the patterns and purpose behind seemingly random difficulties? Or the fifth level, recognizing how past choices and future potentials are shaping your present experience? Each level doesn't negate the ones below it. It integrates them into a more complete perception of reality. As we integrate these understandings, we begin to see that the 7 levels of light aren't separate states, but a continuous spectrum of awareness. Each level contains and transcends the ones before it. The journey isn't about leaving the physical world behind, but perceiving it through increasingly expanded consciousness. The light of the first level reveals the existence of spirit. The second level shows how our perception has been constructed. The third awakens the intelligence of the heart. The fourth activates direct intuitive knowing. The fifth transcends linear time. The sixth dissolves the illusion of separation. And the seventh, the level that transforms us from creatures to creators, reveals our true nature as expressions of the divine source itself. This isn't just ancient wisdom, it's the leading edge of human evolution. What the Gnostics described through mythology, quantum physics, now approaches through mathematics. What Jesus demonstrated through his life, consciousness researchers are validating through studies of non-local awareness and the fundamental nature of reality. The Archontes, whether understood as external entities or internal thought patterns, maintain control through fragmentation. They separate heart from mind, intuition from reason, spirit from matter, human from human. The ascension through levels of light is the progressive reintegration of these fragmented aspects of consciousness, the remembrance of wholeness that was never truly lost but only forgotten. Each level of light doesn't just reveal more of reality, it reveals more of your true nature. The journey isn't about becoming something other than what you are. It's about remembering the fullness of what you've always been. The divine spark within you isn't separate from the source, it is the source, experiencing itself through the unique perspective that is you. We began by questioning whether the light you've been seeking is what you imagined. Now we can see that no imagination could encompass the reality of what light truly is. The 7 levels aren't just gradations of brightness, but entirely different ways of perceiving and participating in reality. The Archontes don't fear your spiritual seeking, they fear your remembrance of what you truly are. They don't mind your enlightenment experiences as long as you return to limited perception afterward. What threatens their control is the stable embodiment of higher frequencies of light, the sustained awareness that transforms not just consciousness, but reality itself. Jesus didn't come to be worshipped as the only one who could achieve the 7th level of light. His message, so thoroughly distorted by centuries of institutional control, was that these levels of perception are your birthright. The works that I do shall you do also, and greater works than these shall you do. This wasn't hyperbole. It was a promise based on his understanding of human potential, once freed from archonic limitation. The light you feared was beyond your reach has been within you all along, waiting not to be found, but to be remembered. Each level isn't something you achieve, but something you allow yourself to be. The journey through the 7 levels isn't about accumulating spiritual attainment, but shedding the illusions that keep you from recognizing what you already are. Perhaps now you can see why this knowledge has been so carefully hidden, why those who revealed it have been silenced throughout history. It's not just information, it's liberation. Not just understanding, it's transformation. The 7th level of light doesn't just change how you see the world, it changes how the world manifests through the lens of your consciousness. What level of light are you currently perceiving through? What shifted within you as you contemplated these ancient yet timeless truths? Share a single word in the comments that captures the essence of what awakened in you during this journey. This isn't just communication, it's communion, a gathering of lights, recognizing each other beyond the veil of separation. Write, illuminate, if you're committed to ascending through these levels of perception, not just for your own awakening, but as part of the collective evolution of human consciousness. Your declaration becomes part of the field that makes this knowledge more accessible to all who are ready to remember the fullness of their divine nature.